Most tech professionals think becoming senior is about knowing more frameworks and tools, kissing ass to higher ups, being faster at coding, or having more years of experience. And I'm here to tell you that that's not actually what makes you a senior tech professional. Now, for those who don't know me, my name is Cameron. I'm an ex Apple, ex Amazon engineer at the ages of 24 and a senior. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you the differences between mid level engineers and senior engineers and exactly how to become a senior tech professional yourself. Now, one of the first things we need to understand is what most people believe to be senior and the incorrect notion of that. Now, most people have this common belief that senior basically means more years of experience and more technical knowledge. However, in reality, that's not what a senior means. A senior is just going to be adopting different responsibilities, mindsets, and ways of thinking, not just actually knowing more. And for example, you could be a 10-year mid-level engineer, coder who's memorized leak code and patterns and all of this kind of stuff, or you could be a senior within even only like 4 or 5 years of total experience if you genuinely know what you're doing. Now, maybe when I gave you the intro about myself, being a 24-year-old senior engineer, ex Apple, ex Amazon, maybe you had kind of this doubt in your mind to be like, yeah, but is that actually true, Cameron? And that's because of this common belief that most people have, needing to have 10, 15 years of experience to be a senior. When in reality, senior operates at completely different levels depending on any sort of companies that you go for. And it's also going to be about the level of responsibility that you have and adopting new ways of thinking and more responsibilities. It's not necessarily how many years of experience or how much skin in the game that you have or how much you actually know. And I'll give you a clear example, right? So with mid-level engineer or mid-level tech professional mindsets in general, specifically that's going to be focusing on things like features, projects, and tasks. And things like, okay, well, this endpoint works, this project is finished, I'm done here, right? I've done what I need to, that's everything. Now, they will think typically on kind of like tickets or deadlines, but that'll pretty much be the majority of the mindset for mid-level tech professionals. Whereas if we operate on a senior mindset, that's actually where things start to change. Now, with a senior mindset, this is going to be focusing on systems and long-term outcomes. So, for example, things like, will this work next week, next year, under certain workloads, under certain loads from like a load balancer, for example, even with 10 times the amount of data coming into it, and what teams will actually be using this as well in the future, but also now. They're also going to be thinking more about maintainability, scalability, and also trade offs there as well, with the level of impact and risks that there are. Understanding the business impacts and reducing downside. So, for example, negative risk, and also covering every single possible task to ensure full coverage and that nothing is missed, right? Because seniors will basically be dealing with a lot of ambiguity in terms of their roles. And ambiguity is effectively just not having a clear path or a clear solution moving forwards. And that's something that a lot of mid level tech professionals may potentially struggle with because they need to be told exactly what is required, step by step instructions by their manager. With seniors, it's going to be more so where there's going to be ambiguity, there's going to be things that aren't known. And you're going to have to kind of go through the weeds and try to figure it out yourself based on limited information, limited access, and so forth. Now, this is going to be the responsibility of you as a senior tech professional to be able to build out that clear path to the solution and, of course, the solution there as well. It's also going to be in terms of having a maintainability of automation, right? And mentoring juniors as well. So the thing is, with automation, right, mid-level engineers or tech professionals in general, they may do a bit of automation here and there, some scripting, some Python and whatnot. But overall, as a senior, it's going to be at the forefront of your mind of thinking, okay, this is a repetitive manual task. How can I actually go ahead and actually automate this? How can I make it automatic so we don't actually have to go through and do this every single day, every single week, or every single month? And that's going to free up tech professionals' time in your team so they can actually focus on more important projects. Now, when it comes to mentoring juniors, this is going to be a very specific process where you can actually help their technical development over time, but it's a very particular way of doing it. And of course, if you have experience doing this, fine. If you just have the knowledge, that also works well as well. But overall, it's going to be about things like messaging, right? How do you relay on constructive criticism to mid-level or even junior tech professionals, right? How can you do it in a professional, mature way where you kind of get the point across, but in a very way that doesn't kind of damage their confidence in any way, right? Or kind of put them in the spotlight unnecessarily. So it's going to be about how can you actually help them and support them with their technical development over time. So what are their passions? What do they want to work on? What are their main focuses at the moment? And how can you help them explore different passions and opportunities that they have within the scope of their role? So it's going to be about asking the why behind a task, right? Now, as I'm a senior engineer, something that I commonly will do is I'll ask some of the other engineers who are junior or mid level to just kind of explain the thought process behind something as well. So, like the why behind the task. And I'll give you a clear example, right? So, like, for example, let's say that you're in a company, you're the senior engineer, there's a mid level engineer as well, and you're kind of mentoring the mid level tech professional. Now, they may be given a task, this mid-level engineer, to be able to run and perform a scan, right? Now, the average tech professional, not necessarily mid-level, entry-level, or senior, just the average tech professional will run the scan, paste the outputs to their manager, and that'll be it. Whereas a higher quality tech professional, maybe even possibly senior or a really good mid-level tech professional, will effectively understand why the scan is important, why it needs to be done, if it can be improved, if anything else was overlooked, and if there's any sort of ways of automating that as well. So, for example, if it's going to be frequent scans. And that is going to be the way of thinking that you can adopt to become a senior tech professional very, very quickly. And that is actually what is holding a lot of people back when it comes to this, right? Because they believe that, they just need years of experience. It's just going to be focusing on what they're doing in the moment, right? Operational work, some project work that they've been given by their manager. And they just continue that for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And then when they feel confident in themselves, that's actually when they start applying for those positions. But the thing is, though, that's a mindset thing, right? That's a commonality that most people believe naturally, and I understand it, right? Because senior, right? If you think of like a senior person in society, that's someone who's been here for a long period of time, many years on this planet, right? So I guess it's kind of conditioned into us by default, even outside of tech. But the thing is, though, if you can actually operate at that level, there's actually zero reason for why you can't land those roles. And it goes deeper than technical skill sets, right? If you only have good technical skill sets, if you only have a good few certifications, it doesn't mean you're going to land a senior tech professional role any kind of quicker than someone who actually knows what they're doing, right? Because the caveat and the pitfall that most candidates will get stuck in, right, for going for senior roles is thinking that technical skill set is the only thing that matters. So things like lead code, things like certifications, projects, automations, that kind of stuff, or just doing mid-level engineer or tech professional roles. But in reality, it goes a whole lot deeper than that, right? You need to understand how to automate, how to mentor others, how to actually adopt responsibilities, how to deal with ambiguity, how to do all of these things. And if you understand these things, right, this can actually lead you into these senior tech professional roles a whole lot quicker than spending 10 to 15 years in the mid-level role and then wondering kind of why you haven't got to that next level yet. Because in reality, right, if you focus on all of the right things, you'll get there in the space of 3 to 5 years of total experience. And if you focus on all of the wrong things, it will take you 10 to 15 years only then to discover that you was missing all of the things that I've practically mentioned in this video. So it's very important to adopt the mindset and way of thinking of a senior tech professional, because if that's where we wish to be going, we can get there a whole lot quicker by adopting these responsibilities, adopting this way of thinking, opposed to staying stuck as a mid-level and only having those responsibilities. Because to be honest, if we need to get to the next level or we want to, we need to focus on what actually can get us there, not what other people tell us will get us there, but in reality, it's not accurate. Now, that is exactly what you want to do in terms of actually moving to senior and the differences between mid level and senior engineers. And if you're a mid level or senior tech professional at the moment and you're looking for kind of more help in terms of landing your ideal tech role and you potentially want to work with me, then what I'll do is I'll pop a link in the top of the description where you'll be able to book in a one-to-one call with me and we can go over your current situation, any sort of bottlenecks that you're facing, and how I can help in terms of landing you this ideal tech position that you're looking for. But that's pretty much everything for this video. So I'll see you in the next video.